missing Dave and Mark, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, well, since we have a quorum, why don't we begin? So I'll call to order the October 19th meeting of the Parks, Recreation, Forestry Commission. First order of business, we've already taken roll call indirectly, but let's move to the approval of the minutes from the last meeting of October 5th. Entertain a motion to accept the submission of those minutes as submitted.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Thank you, Stu. There's
A second. A second.
Okay, thank you. Second. So any corrections, additions, comments? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you. Move on to our next order of business, new business number 1, a proposal by Middleton Youth Hockey to establish 2 seasonal rinks at Penny Klein Park. Matt, why don't I throw this to you to start it out?
Sure. We have representatives from the hockey group as well as some of the athletes from the high school to discuss this. Just some background. I think everyone's likely aware that we're going to have trouble doing any kind of sports indoors over the winter with health guidelines and recommendations in place. So I think this is a creative solution that's really a win-win for the hockey community as well as the general public. The city's involvement here is pretty minimal to pay for electricity and water for these 2 rinks. And I think what we're going to gain, I'm rather familiar with the product, having maintained one of these rinks for the better part of 7 years in a previous community. You get a much better ice surface than you get on a pond or a land rink. These are a liner with thermoform plastic boards. They're safe, they're durable, and I think they've got a good proposal in place. There's some things to work out, but I think this is a good plan, and I'm going to turn it over to them to present as such.
Okay, I'll start off, everyone. Thank you very much for giving us some time. My name's Steve Chafe. I have coached hockey for years in our community here. I was on the Middleton Youth Hockey Board. And as my kids have aged out of that, I am now working a bit with the high school. I'm not a coach, but I've done a leadership program with the high school seniors from the hockey team. And so with the fact that the season is a little bit, chaotic with coronavirus, these young men have been working all summer, building their leadership skills and doing a lot of great things, and with the intent of employing them onto their season. So with the season being a little bit, just different things going on, we kind of came up with this creative idea to build outdoor ice. We asked if we might be able to do it with on Penny Klein Park. Myself and many of the other hockey families have built these types of rinks in our backyards, so we're familiar with how to do it. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to turn it over to 3 of our high school seniors. Each one will kind of share a piece of what we're thinking. And before I do that, though, Matt, did you get my slides, or would you like me to try and share screen to show the 2 PowerPoint slides that I have?
I do have those, and I think I just need to reshare the right screen here, and we should be set.
Yep, that's it. That's perfect. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to our guys. I forget. I think Sean, are you speaking first? I can't remember.
Yes, I am.
Go ahead. Remember. And I should, before we get started, let me be a good role model. My name is Steve Chafe, and my address is 4522 Nina Lane in Middleton. Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sean Ruley. I live at 2404 Mayflower Drive. So it's me and I think 2 other seniors here today, and I'm just going to be talking about the opportunity that we get from this rink. With the current situation, like Matt said earlier, we don't know how it's going to really work out when it comes into full speed and the season kind of starts, but with another option like an outdoor rink will really help us, and not just the high school team, but also all of youth hockey in general. I think the opportunity will help us stay positive through the situation we're in, and then the chance to play together and just kind of grow as a team, even though we're dealing with this on the side, I think will really help. And let me pass it over to Jacob.
Hi, I'm Jacob Covey. I live in 4711 Horizon Road. And I'm going to talk about how it's not only going to help out the, Middleton hockey community, but it's also going to help out just the community in general. You'll get people there on sleds, pulling around their kids, having the time of their lives. And that's just really, really helpful. When you got all these times going on, like Sean said, you could always use something to lift you up. I think that's about it for community, but it's really helpful for the community to get together and do this. I'm gonna turn it over to Spencer now.
Hello, I'm Spencer Kelsher. I live at 4660 Stonewood Drive, which is actually right across the street from Penny Klein Park. My family and I have been building these outdoor rinks. We have one in our yard every year for the past 5 or 6 years. And it takes around 4 hours to set up, I'd say, depending on what your boards look like and what, what equipment you have. But other than that, ours takes around 14 hours to flood, with the fire station helping us out, probably a little less than that. And maintenance is you got to get out there whenever it snows and you have to shovel it off or do something like that. And also maybe you have to flood it a little more in order to get, the smooth ice surface. But overall, the maintenance of these rinks is not too much. And we have meetings every Sunday with our team of seniors and the Red Line community, which is our MHS hockey community. And everyone is on board with this, and they really want to help out. So maintenance is not going to be an issue. The high schoolers will take care of that. And if no one else does, I will for sure take care of that. It is literally 200 yards from my house. And, maintenance is not going to be an issue here. I'll pass it back to Mr. Chafe.
Yeah, so we're here to answer any questions you have. I put the slide up front. You can see, we really want to do all this on our own. We're using it as an opportunity to let our young players here get some a chance for some leadership and to basically involve themselves in the community. So we really want to do all of it on our own. We've briefed and talked to the Middleton Youth Hockey, which has about probably over 200 members. And their board was enthusiastic about it last week too. So again, it's a way for us to come together that way. But as you see on the slide, we kind of want to take care of it all on our own. What we're asking from the city itself is provide the space, provide us electricity for lighting, provide us water for daily resurfacing. Although, like Spencer said, I think in the beginning, we've talked to the fire department before about them just bringing a pumper truck and basically filling it up. So they would provide the majority of the water. We just need some to resurface on a daily basis. So with that, I'll be here to answer any questions you may have or any thoughts you may have about how to make this project go and comply with what you need. So here we are.
Well, on behalf of the committee, Sean, Jacob, Spencer, thank you for coming out, and Steve for talking to us. This is how it works, and this is good, and appreciate it immensely. I just want to know if we get the mountain with this, just like that picture.
Yeah, that's going to be next year's project, but
That's right,
hopefully
next year.
coronavirus is done by then.
Okay. All right, comments from the committee. I have a few questions, but I'll wait.
I think one of the things just before the commission goes further into this is I've shared with Steve, I think one of the challenges is, how we make sure that these efforts are complying with health guidelines, and they're aware of that, are working on putting information together. I think the biggest piece is how we tackle the contact tracing requirements in terms of, how that's managed in terms of, obviously if it's a youth hockey team coming out to practice or scrimmage, they know who's on their team and can take attendance from who's there. How we handle the open skate, we may have to have, some type of online sign up for folks that are going to come out to open skate so that we can we can track that. I think it's all manageable. I think what we want to hear from you are there concerns that you have that would limit this in any way?
All right, questions, comments?
So you're going to create a schedule for open skating for the community. How will that schedule be publicized to the community at large?
Steve and I have talked about having something on our city website that we can post and manage. I think that's the best and most transparent way to do it.
Yeah,
So-
and I'm sorry to interrupt there. My thought is, you know, this high school team will want a certain, say an hour a day. I would imagine the youth would want an hour or two a day. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned it here or in the slide, but we would actually look at putting two sheets on there. About 60 by 100 feet is the max we could go. We might do smaller than that. We'll just have to see kind of how we want to finalize it. But with two sheets, you kind of have one with more organized type activities and another for, you know, people who aren't so familiar with hockey and just want to get out there and have some fun. But with that, we have a lot more flexibility in the schedule. But our intent would be to, you know, to really offer a lot of open skate and free opportunities for the community.
Well, so how many hours a day you actually total number of hours? Because you started listing an hour for this and an hour for that. And what are you thinking in terms of total usage time?
Well, I mean, in a formal sense, I would say, I mean, I just listed 2 or 3 hours a day, let's say, on one sheet, but you know, in actuality, they're available, you know, I mean, however many hours a day the park is open times 2. So if the park's open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., was it 16 hours? There's 32 hours available. I would imagine the organized activity would probably be, you know, no more than 4 or 5 hours a day. So there'd be, to me, there'd be a lot of opportunity with just the ice open. And what happens there is, you know, if a mom or dad wants to take their 2 kids out there and go shoot pucks or go skate around, that's kind of what it's there for too.
Yeah, I understand. And I appreciate that. I think I just want to be careful that there doesn't sort of become I'll use a really bad term, call it turf war. But that suddenly a group of kids decides to go out and they're going to put together a hockey game. And all of a sudden, without warning, the place is taken up because you can't have kids skating when there's a hockey game going on. So whatever has to be is done. I think it has to be managed well to be very clear with as much advance warning as to you're using it. So hello, Mark, other questions?
From past experience, one of the rules we've had with public open skate times is no sticks on the ice. It's really a limiting factor for the parent who wants to take a young kid out on the ice, and just the threat of a hockey stick and a teenager is a limiting factor. So we want to make sure that during those open skate times that it's no sticks on the ice.
Yeah. So just a couple logistic questions. What does this do with 7,000 tons of water or something on top of the fields? What's the result of what happens to the fields underneath them in the spring?
So we plan these to go in the area, if you remember, where the shelter was planned for, in the middle of the parking lot, so that there would be no impact on the soccer fields. That's a primary concern that I was actually contacted by the soccer club as well, to ensure that that's not going to be an issue, because we know if soccer is a go in the spring, the high school alone has 17 teams that'll be practicing on top of each other, and field space is going to be a significant issue this spring.
Okay, so you're not worried about any damage whatsoever to underlayment?
No.
Okay. The other thing I'm just concerned, I've not seen any issues related to all the equipment such as the tarp or the underlayment, all these boards, is where's this all going to get stored and who's going to be responsible? And when spring comes, where's this all going to go?
Well, I think and I don't want to speak for Steve, what we had discussed was that this would be fundraised and donated to the city. And then the city would be responsible for storage at the end of the season. And we've got, I won't say ample storage space, but we do have a pretty nice building with a lot of cold storage for these kind of elements that we can put everything on a pallet and store it at a height where it's out of the way, and work with our crew to get that stored. And then I think one of the benefits here is if things go back to normal, I don't know that we need 2 of these rinks at Penny Klein next year. Maybe 1 goes Penny Klein, and maybe we can put 1 at Lakeview or another location where we're able to kind of reuse these amenities and continue to serve the community.
I think it's a great idea. My kids learned to skate on 20 by 50 feet sitting outside of Middleton High School. That's years ago. And so it's, as a concept, I think it's fine. I just want to make sure that we're all thinking about the details. Other questions, concerns from the committee?
So
The-
Matt,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
Matt, how are you going to light this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Steve answer that question.
So there's a lot of different ways to light it. I found the most efficient and simplest way is, especially with LED lights that have come out, the LED work lights. They're like a 200 watt equivalent light, but they only use something like 10% of that. So approximately 20 watts per light. And you can mount them close to the surface. They don't have to be mounted super high, so they can be mounted just slightly above the boards, just to light the ice surface itself. And I use them about every 20 to 30 feet. Yeah, I don't think, Matt, I don't think I included any lighted pictures, but I can include those with an email later if people want to see how that works. There's other options if people want to build, sometimes people want to get the lights elevated. We could look at doing posts or something like that. But to me, the simplest thing is just about, a foot off the boards there, or a foot above the ice surface is where I mount my lights. So.
Well, I have a serious concern about this only because being on the plan committee, we're looking at people wanting to put a little bit of lights in some gardens near apartments about 2 blocks away from the airport. And you're literally right on top of the airport. And I think that there's no way that any lighting could be done without having this go through with scrutiny and approval through whoever's in charge of what's going to happen with the FAA and aeronautic lighting. I could see 2 lit fields of ice at the end of that could be a major distraction for the airport. So I think it somehow would have to go through that to get cleared.
Well, that's a really good point you bring up. I didn't think of that. I'm actually an airline pilot myself, so I have familiarity with these types of issues. And I will call Rick Morey tomorrow and talk to him about it. So I appreciate you bringing
Please
that
do.
up.
I think that at some point that's got to get passed through, whether it's Rick who can give you the answers or not. He's going to tell you where you need to go in this.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that. That's a great point. I appreciate you.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can look at this as a committee and approve or disapprove as a concept, but the idea of the lighting is something that's going to be beyond what we have any control over.
Yeah.
And if you're planning on using these at night, that's going to be an issue that's got to be dealt with.
Yep. And I will say if it doesn't take a ton of light too. So, if they have light restrictions in terms of lumens or something like that, we can certainly comply. So I'll talk with them and find out that answer. That's a good point.
I think it's less about the lumen as much as having up shooting light. The lights all have to be down shooting in a way. So yeah, but more, yeah.
So can you talk about safety, right? The concept says that the boards are going to be a foot over the ice, and we're now going to be in a parking lot. I just envisioned some kid, going fast, hitting the boards and then taking a tumble into the parking lot, right? Most indoor skating rinks have a waist-high wall, which, I know it's harder, but it keeps them on the ice. So how is this going to be able to corral the users?
So that's a good question. And, basically the boards are almost at ice surface. So I think I put on there, we usually build them about a foot above the ice surface. So you're correct that there's no capability to capture somebody if they go outside of it. When Matt and I walk the grounds, I don't know we didn't have the exact width, but we will ensure that the rink is within a border so that somebody going off the end will not fall onto the parking lot surface, but rather what's currently there is kind of a mulchy, dirt mix right now. Of course, it's winter, so it's going to be, it's going to be frozen, but
It's going to be as hard as a concrete probably.
Well, that's true. But the other thing that we try and do too, now you can't guarantee this, but when we shovel the rinks, what you actually get is snowbanks on the sides. And that's to me the optimal thing. But I certainly, we can't guarantee that because we just don't know what the weather's going to bring us.
Can I say something, please?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Another thing that we do is with the boards, it's pool noodles. And so you cut a slit and then you put them on top of the boards. Cross Plains does this on their outdoor rink. And that just makes it, I guess a little harder to go over. And you're not going to crack your head on the actual board because the pool noodle's there.
I'll also add, in my previous community, I inherited a rink that was 4x8 sheets of plywood were the sides. And the rescue squad literally sat out there at night and waited for somebody to get hurt. And when we went to these boards, the physical hockey and the injuries dropped considerably because there wasn't a surface to check somebody into or even the threat of it. So it really improved safety for all the participants from a hockey standpoint as well.
Yeah, Mark, you raised this question. I think it's important about liability. You want to say any more about that?
Well, I think there's recreational immunity for the city.
Yeah.
Okay. But the flip side of that is that this is going to have to be signed explicitly that says use is at your own risk.
Yeah, I think that makes good sense. And so we'll have a board out front. We planned on having a sponsor board. So for instance, there's already businesses that are talking about wanting to contribute. So, my thought there was that we put a big board out front that says this rink was, sponsored or donating, gracious donations by these businesses, etc. And on that same board to me would be the rules of the ice, know this, no, don't do this, don't do that. And in there, we would certainly could put, user accepts all liability or use at your own risk or what have you. Whatever verbiage that makes most sense that the city needs, we would certainly be able to do that.
Yeah, Matt, maybe you want to comment on it.
Yeah, we can run any draft by the city attorneys and make sure they're comfortable with whatever is up for rules and kind of alerts there as well.
Okay.
So
Are you
are we
looking for a
talking
motion on
about
this?
this
Yeah,
as
sorry.
an ongoing event and an ongoing year after year? Or is it just temporary?
I think everyone's hope is that this would be a temporary 2020 installation, and that beyond 2020, it will be up to the city in terms of what it does with use of this equipment and locations.
So Matt, are we looking for a motion on this, I presume, to move ahead?
Yeah, and I would include something in there about airport review of lighting.
Yeah.
I just had one question. That's, you stated that you wanted the city to provide water for daily resurfacing. I know nothing about how much water that would take, but after hearing a lot about how much something like the splash pad drains for water, Matt, what's our financial obligation as far as maintenance on that?
So having managed rinks in the past, and even the rinks we do manage with flooding at Meadows and Parkside Heights, I'd be shocked if we were even in the $700 range on water use for this. It's the initial use that they're looking for the fire department to assist with is the most significant, and that really the daily water is it's very minimal. You don't want a very heavy flood on an established rink. It's really about filling in those skate marks.
Okay, I think it's a great idea. I just thought I'd ask the question.
It's literally like an 1/8 inch of water over the surface. So, I mean, I don't know what the gallons would be, but I know at my house, it's, probably less than 25 gallons per surface, say per day.
And how thick is this ice to begin with?
The ice is, has to be 4 inches thick. 3 inches is what's required for, just normal use for, if there's going to be a lot of people on there, you would want it 4 inches thick. And then depending on the slope of the earth, the earth is always going to have some level of slope. So the ice could get thicker depending on that. But as Matt and I walked the property, without getting a zip level out there or survey equipment, it appears quite flat. So I would imagine the ice would probably range between 4 and 10 inches is my initial guess.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions?
My only concern right now is, with COVID, and setting capacity limits of the rinks during open skate. If you do an online sign up through the city's website or something, what do you do if somebody who signed up for a time shows up to the rink and it's just packed full of people who just showed up to the rink and did not go through the proper sign up procedure?
Okay, Matt, I'll start with this and maybe you can add to it. My thought is I would like to have a place where people can, sign up for the ice for an hour, let's say. And if a family wanted it or a small group, whatever, and they sign up, that's fine. For open skating, if we're limiting it to 25 on the schedule, we would say open skating, daily from 4 to 6 p.m. No more than 25 people in compliance. I also think on the front board where we have all the information that the compliance rules are there. If somebody signs up and somebody else is already on the ice and they don't want to get off and that sort of thing happens, I think that's going to be like when somebody signs up for a picnic structure. I'm not quite sure how that's handled. So Matt, maybe you have something to add to that.
Well, I think what it comes down to is if we have one rink that has scheduled open skate time, the other rink is likely going to be used by either the high school group or the youth hockey group at that time, and there's going to be a responsible party from this organization. And this comes along with all of this, is that everybody's going to have to kind of step up and make sure things are happening in the right way, because the first call that I get, and it will happen, telling me there's 100 people at these two rinks, it's going to result in Steve and I having a conversation about how we're going to manage it moving forward, because there's a problem identified, and that a second occurrence is probably going to have to shut things down. And whether that, the reality is we're getting complaint calls all the time about crowd gatherings and those sort of things, and it won't stop because there's two ice rinks out there. If it's being violated, the greater than 25 per rink, and I don't know if this was shared or not, we plan to fence between the two rinks. Public health has stated that, if we've got a barrier that kind of creates, it's kind of the same as a baseball field, that we could have 25 on a baseball field. Same thing here. We could have 25 per rink, provided there's a fence between the two. That would be the plan. And if we're exceeding that capacity, we're going to have to take a step back and re-examine.
Yeah, I'd like to see a hockey game with 12 and a half on the side. So Matt, what's going to happen with parking? Is there going to be enough leftover room for parking?
Yeah, the parking lot should not be impacted in any way. We plan for both rinks to be in the grass area between that kind of divides the parking lots now.
Okay. Okay, other comments? Questions? Okay, I guess at this point, if anybody's interested, I would entertain a motion.
One last question. How is Capital Ice going to feel about all this?
It's funny. I have not talked to them yet. They've had so much turmoil with the loss of the USHL season. I will reach out to them tomorrow. I'm sure. It's not going to take any business from them. I'm not sure what they've got going right now, but it's certainly not going to. It's not going to steal any of their, their ice. Our youth and our high school is using as much as we can from them at the current time. So, but I will reach out to them tomorrow.
I guess, Steve, this is Mike Heberly. I'm currently serving as registrar for the Youth Hockey Association, and we are leasing more than our share of ice at Cap Ice right now. The one downside that we have is we are not playing games, but we are spreading our ice time into the weekends. This year, we usually rent a lot of ice down on campus. One, because it's a little bit less expensive, but with campus shut down this year, we're unable to get that ice on campus. But we have not reached out to other rinks in the area to lease or rent ice. We're renting all of our ice from Cap Ice at this point. So we're probably renting just a little bit more than normal from them this season. So, but your point is good, and I don't know that there would necessarily be any impacts to them, but it's probably worth checking in.
Well, it seems there's a couple outstanding questions that you've mentioned, including the airport. Is there a way to keep the agenda alive but table it until the next meeting so that we can get these answers resolved? I'm a little reluctant personally to take action on this until we know about the airport and these other questions.
So I think you make two motions. One is to refer this to the airport committee to opine on the light situation. So I think, Steve, it's going to be, you're going to need to come up with some type of lighting plan so that they have something definitive to work with. In terms of anything I saw, so let's just stop there. I'll make a referral to the airport commission to ascertain whether there's going to be any issues with the lights.
All right, does that need a second?
Yes, it does.
I second it. Discussion? All in favor of the referral, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you, Mark.
And then the second motion, I would just move conceptual approval of this. We have just the issue with safety, the issue with, I'm not as concerned about capitalized. I just need to understand that, they're not going to come complain that you've taken business away from them. I think so that, Matt, the outstanding issues are the lighting plan, the safety issues, and I think whatever COVID issues that we have, right? This thing at a minimum has to follow Dane County guidelines. Yeah, I mean, what other issues were there that you thought were outstanding, John?
No, I was worried first about damage to the ground, which wasn't. But I think it's a safety in the airport lighting and whether we're guaranteeing scheduling that gives appropriate access to people.
Yeah, I just think that as long as you can come up with an initial safety plan, initial lighting plan, I think we're good to keep this rolling.
Well, I guess too. I'm looking for what would be the appropriate options to take. So
I just moved conceptual approval.
Okay.
I will second it.
Seconded by Sue. Thank you. Further discussion? Okay, call the question. All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. So the motion is carried. Go forward and get these things resolved. So thank you all, you guys from the hockey people.
And
right.
we thank you for your good inputs, and we'll take this and we'll keep working it, and please keep your ideas coming, and anything we can do to help, we're happy to. So thank you.
Yeah, I think you got a good sense from the committee that I don't see anybody who thinks this is a bad idea. We just want it to be done right.
As do we, and we don't have we don't think about some of the things that you do, so we appreciate you pointing them out, and we'll go work them right now. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Right,
Moving on to agenda item number 2, splash pad. Matt, this is your baby.
So
use it,
following our last meeting, I had further conversation with Blake, and what we both felt was important was to kind of get a baseline of where things were at with the splash pad and bring it's been there 12 years and there's been very little other than startup and end of year stuff, and then get it ready the next spring. So we had an analysis done that included pressure testing, a lot of inspection, review, and then Because of what was discovered, we even did a little televising of some of the water lines. And I'm going to pull up the proposal that Blake has prepared, or I should say the report that Blake prepared, and then turn it over. Blake is on the call and is available to kind of highlight this in a way better than I can and answer any questions that you may have.
Can I interrupt for just a second? Did everybody get the report that Matt sent out this afternoon? Anybody not? Okay, fine. I think we'll move forward then.
Great. So nice to see you all again. I'll just sort of talk through our process. We mobilized on the 7th, so a week and a half ago, to pressure test all the lines. So we removed all the vertical features. Matt, can you scroll down to the image board with all of the pressure testing? We wanted to confirm that indeed there was a line that was broken. And so the best way to do that without running water was to pressure test it with air. And so we isolated each line independently and forced air through all the lines through a pressure test system. And we found 4 of the 15. So if you see in that upper right image, that's the manifold. Some of you may not have ever seen inside there, but there are 15 different valves and lines that feed all these features. So tested each one independently and held it under 20 PSI for 10 minutes to make sure that there was not a slow leak. And all but 4 held at 100%, which was good, not great. So we then wanted to further investigate the 4 that did not hold, one of which was the leaves. So the big 3 stainless steel leaves, which now have been suspected of a line break for the last several seasons. So we tested we actually cameraed all 4 of those lines.
Blake, I'll just add in there that in 2018 and 2019, we did not operate the leaves because of the suspected break. We weren't getting water pressure to them, and staff had those turned off for the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. So Matt, go back 1 slide up, if you will. Nope, sorry, 1 slide down. Too far. Right there, perfect. So there you can see our process. Those middle slides, we took all the caps off and the features off and clamped down our gasketed pressure gauges, inflated it up to 20 PSI for the whole line and let it sit. So again, all 15 were done. 4 failed the initial test. 1 of them did not hold any air pressure whatsoever, and that was the leaf line. The other 3 that failed had slow leaks. So we discussed it and felt that we really needed to televise all 4 of those lines to figure out if we had more than 1 line that had failed. The good news is the 3 other than the leaves, after being televised, yielded no structural cracks or breaks. We determined that they were bad valves at the manifold that were leaking air. So the good news is those 3 are intact, with the exception that they will need new valves, but I'll get to that in a minute. The line that feeds the 3 leaves, if you want to scroll down a little bit, Matt, we'll get the next series of images. So those are some of the images from when this was initially installed. You can see there's a lot of pipe runs out there, very complex network of lines. Scroll down a little bit more, please. All right, so in this graphic, that's the initial plumbing plan that we scanned in from the original plan set. That red box off to the left, right by the manifold. Matt, can you do a little Vanna White for me? There you go. So we excavated, we removed a section of concrete outside of the main splash pad deck and excavated down to that pipe chase, found the 4 lines that were suspected to be damaged, cut into them and ran the cameras up. And that's when we discovered that 3 of the 4 were actually intact. The 4th being the leaves. We did run the camera all the way up. Now, Matt, I need you to do a little dancing for me here. Nope, stay on that slide. The blue line, guys, from the manifold running up to the colored squares. That is the line that feeds the leaves. As you can see, once it gets into that network, it starts to web out because those leaves are hydraulically tied. So unfortunately, our camera run only got us as far as the first 90-degree bend, which, Matt, if you can zoom in for me. Yeah, so there's a little circle with a B in it, right in the middle of that red area. Yep, right, up a little bit, up a little bit, up a little bit. That white circle with a B, there you go, right there. That's where we were able to get our camera to. And so beyond that point, we are not sure of the condition of the pipes, but up into that 90, the pipe run is solid. So the good news of the bad news is the main pipe run through the body of the splash pad is intact. We suspect that the break is somewhere within that red shape. Now those colors that I've put on there correspond with the actual colored concrete that is on the deck, so you can get a feel of where you're at when you're standing out there. The further good news of that is if we are to remove some of that concrete to fix the pipe, we only have one color to deal with. Now there is a slight chance that it is actually in that green, but I think that is very small chance because we actually ran the camera backwards from that leaf and we got to another 90, which I believe is in the red section. Does everyone follow me on that complicated journey?
Mhm.
All right.
What I think it is important to note, and I think a lot of you know this, is this splash pad was the first municipal splash pad installed in the state of Wisconsin. And how they install them has turned. Blake's talked about 90. Anyone who knows anything about plumbing, they no longer use 90-degree plumbing in splash pad construction. They do sweeping 45s because of this televising issue where you can't get a camera through that hard 90-degree corner. So it's one of those things that being out in front and being one of the first to have a splash pads now maybe costing us a little bit. But what I've talked to Blake about is if we do this, my hope is that we can put sweeping 45s in and adjust to better construction methods in any repair work that's being done.
Yeah, Matt, if you scroll up, I'll actually show you the photograph of the 90. And okay, the top right image, if you can zoom in a little bit on that. Yep, that one. So if you see the, in that triangle, there's a good example of it. One of the bases has a 90-degree bend coming pretty much right off of the base. Down a little bit. Yep, right there. So that's an example of some of those junctions that are in there that we'd like to see replaced, that you know wouldn't be done that quite the same way in today's construction. So that was sort of step one in our analysis. And then we took a step back and said, all right, I know that there's concern over the water consumption, you know, bigger picture. Obviously, we're not using all of this, this water consumption throughout the year because of water loss in one cracked pipe. It's a bigger scenario. So we went back and looked at some of the initial features and pulled up the manufacturer drawings from the vendor and determined that when this was designed and installed, it predated some of the low flow water technology. Yeah, Matt, if you can zoom into that table on that page, that'd be great. So we actually talked to the manufacturer, pulled out their archival drawings, and determined that the gallons per minute on some of those features are very, very high in what we would consider a normal design threshold today. And so we started looking at options to retrofit some of those nozzles within the features to try and bring our total GPM consumption down. And you can see the drastic reduction in water consumption that we can achieve with fairly low effort. And that's, I should have brought a sample here with me, but essentially the orifices that spray the water out of these features can be threaded out and rethreaded with new inserts that have smaller holes or different spray patterns. And so we feel pretty comfortable that we can reduce our gallons per minute in somewhere the 60 to 80, so averaging 70 GPM. So when you extrapolate that over the course of a season, it's about 2.5 million gallons. So Matt, if you scroll down a little bit to the next page. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So in this table, guys, right now, over the last few years, you've been averaging about 8 million. And there were some outliers in there. One was at 10, there was some 6s, some 7s, but we took an average of about 8. And we think that if we can make these minor adjustments, we can bring you down into the 5.5 and potentially even greater with some additional sequencing and cleaning up the manifold, doing some mechanical improvements in there. So I know there was discussion at the last meeting about doing a full conversion to a recirc. You know, after this analysis, we feel pretty confident that this is a better way to go. It's going to get you significantly less water usage with about somewhere in the $7,000 to $10,000 cash outlay to do so, and it's non-invasive other than we choose to replace the concrete by the leaves. So there's a lot more information and data in this report, but that's kind of the highlight of it.
So Blake, if you were going to do this work, when would you do it?
That's a great question. So one of the things we did, we decided to leave the cut section of concrete out in case we wanted to take next steps. If we are to remove that red concrete, you know, we're sort of running out of time here in the construction season. I would say we've got another month or so before we're not going to be able to pour concrete. So I did reach out to Joe Daniels Construction, who built this initially, and we've had some dialogue about what best to do. And we're going to meet out there this week to talk through it and figure out, you know, what that timing might look like and what that cost might be. So I'm working on that for you, but my gut tells me we might want to get it done this fall. That way in the spring, you'd be ready to go.
Yeah. Matt, what about the money? She's talking like 10,000, something like that.
Well, I think there's two discussions here. The conversion and looking at some of the fixture modifications to reduce water use, he has estimated in this last line here on page 3 of somewhere between $6,000 to $7,000.
Okay.
And if I'm doing the math right in my head, that looks to be like a 3-4 year return on investment, if that, based on water savings. If we're going to save cautiously at 3 million gallons a year, that's going to pay for itself pretty quickly. And I think that's something that, you know, we'll find all work between now and our next meeting on where we can fund that from. But I think that'd be something we'd want to definitely look at taking advantage of. The concrete, I don't know that I've heard a figure yet. Correct, Blake? I mean, that really is going to come from the discussions with Joe Daniels and
Yeah, correct.
and where that's at. And I guess, you know, there's a couple of ways of looking at this. You know, do you have any guess, Blake, on what you're talking about off the top of the figure for removal and replacement of that concrete?
Yeah, well, so we can sort of back into it. So there's about 250 square feet in that red section. You want to go back to that diagram for me? There's about 250 square feet. Typically colored reinforced concrete is going to be somewhere in the 10 to 12 bucks a square foot. So let's conservatively say 250 times 12. You know, it's about $3,000. That's just for pouring new. So then we'll have a little bit of demo cost. We'll have some cost in replacing the pipe sections that are broken. So I would guess we're in the 5 to 6, but that's just me spitballing. I do want to get more discussion and feedback from Joe Daniels. And what kills me is that there is not a speck of concrete on this pad that has moved vertically in 12 years. And when this thing was built, it was built in some very, very poor soils. And I am quite frankly, shocked that there's been no movement whatsoever. So that's a testament to the job that Daniels did initially.
Well, it seems that a general consensus is there's a lot that can be fixed with not a huge amount of pain and cost. And I personally think we should be moving ahead and keep looking at this. And I presume, Matt, at some point you'll come back with actual numbers and we'll figure
Yeah,
out.
the plan would be hopefully to have more information in 2 weeks. I kind of wanted Blake to go through this tonight and kind of give you an update on to where we're at. And if anybody walks by the splash pad, you can see on this bottom right picture why there's a hole in the concrete right now, trying to explain that. The other thought here is, I mean, best case scenario, it sounds like $10,000, which we're in a tight budget. It's a tight budget year. We're looking at a tight budget for next year. I'm sure that we could come up with a plan. One of my other thoughts kind of in the back of my head has been, we're at year 12 of the splash pad, and is it time to look at adding an amenity or two that, I know this sounds strange, would add some cost, but would maybe make the project more appetizing from a park development fund expenditure, where we maybe replace a fixture or two along with these repairs, and maybe it's just me in my head that thinks that that's more justifiable from a park development expenditure than just the simple maintenance project. And I would defer that to the board. I don't know that that decision needs to be made tonight, but unless you don't want that to be explored, that's something that I can work with Blake on the next couple of weeks of what that might look like as well.
Matt, I will just supplement that comment. If you go back up to my table, there's a detail of a new feature. The turtle, unfortunately, as much as I love it, is in really poor condition. The paint is coming off. There's actually a fracture in the shell, and it's also a water hog. I want to say it's in the 30 to 35 GPM range. And so as part of this conversion proposal, I would suggest you get rid of the turtle, and we replace it with something along these lines, which is a significantly less water consumption item. And it adds a whole new element of play value. That blue ball spins in that basin. And so as it fills up, kids can twirl it and watch the water move. It becomes a much more interactive feature than the turtle is. I love that turtle. I actually personally installed it back in 2008, the day before grand opening. So I hate to see it go, but it is showing its age.
Well, I guess at this point, I think we need to both know the number of what the repair is going to be. And then Matt, if you have other interests or stuff like that, it's going to behoove you to come up with some budget and some argument, and I think we can talk about it. Yeah, Jim.
Matt, can you just go back through, we've talked on a number of occasions about the slip and fall, the algae or whatever. Where are we at with that, and how does that play into this?
So when I read through this, I know Blake had identified that resurfacing the deck, once the deck being repaired with I forget the term, but a no slip or a reduced slip surfacing. And I'll stop talking and let Blake actually say what he wrote.
Yeah, so there's a lot of buildup of lime and calcium on the concrete deck. That's just happened over years. It's present on the concrete deck. It's present on the shafts of the vertical features. It's also present in the manifold itself. So all of that needs to be cleaned. And we talked to the crew about how to do that over the winter months. So I think that at least the features will be removed and cleaned up. The deck itself needs to be heavily cleaned with an acid wash or some other chemical to get that buildup of calcium out. And then anytime we do a pool or a splash pad project, we always have the concrete sealed with an anti-slip, and we recommend the Shark Grip. It's a Sherwin-Williams product. Essentially, it has a sand grit embedded in that surfacing material, and I feel that with a substantial cleaning and reapplication of the Shark Grip, the vibrancy of that initial concrete color will come back, as well as that the initial non-slip surface that we had in 08.
Well, that answered the question. I don't, Matt, are you looking at something there, or John, what's our next step? Oh,
You're on mute, John. John, you're on mute.
Sorry, I suggested we move on since this is just informational and we've got a sense and we need to get back with more data. So why don't we move on to the final agenda item, which is our virtual walkthrough.
I think there's two more agenda items, one of which being, and I'm going to ask if I can go in reverse order and save Lakeview for the end.
I didn't see two other.
Project updates.
Oh, okay.
So I just kind of wanted to highlight some of the park improvement work that the crew's been doing. We've had a very productive 8 weeks or so of projects, and bear with me as I try and share the right screen here. So I'll go through these quickly for sake of time. The first is the new Parisi playground. I can assure you that swings have been installed, but when this picture was taken, they were not quite there just yet. Same with this photo. We had a request for some ADA swings to be added. This is at Hidden Oaks at the Henricks Family Farm Park. And so we added 2 of those accessible seats on the swing there. Adirondack chairs. These are 2 that we added at the Taylor shelter out looking on the football field. There's 4 of them that will be going down on the Lakeview patio next to the new shelter. We've been doing some initial concrete repair work to the dugouts out at firefighters. One of the things that we speculated were problematic was the fact that the fence posts were in the concrete, the fence posts of the dugout. So as we removed the old cracked and pretty beat up concrete in the dugouts, as we reframe these, we frame them inside of the fence posts so that as the fence posts heave, they're not cracking or breaking the concrete, hopefully giving some longer life expectancy to those dugout pads. Woodside Heights. This was the day of the work. I'm sure a lot of you have been through there since this work occurred. We had a lot of water building up back in this area behind the homes. And what the crew did was, and we've done a lot of this work on the trail system over the past 2 months, is excavate a portion of the trail, put a pipe in. In this instance at Woodside Heights, along this edge here, they put some fabric down and rock and created a channel to get that water to move more effectively to the pond. And you can kind of see this is that area behind the homes at the edge of the park here, which we have really since the flood been unable to manage. And so here, this is a photo taken today of some somewhat drier conditions of that repair work. This is another instance of that kind of work this is on the path behind Net and approaching as you go further, I guess that's northwest on the path towards Hitters in this direction. We created this swale and tried to address this really poor condition of the path. Another swale was put in. You can see Hitters in the background here. This is from this morning. We had 2 small patches repaired and paved. And then bring into Lakeview here. In addition to the shelter work, we were able to accomplish a lot of site work here, improving the entrance into the shelter, creating a swale here along the path, and better navigating or mitigating some of the water issues that were we're dealing with at Lakeview. So from there, I will go see if I can get to the right spot here and share. So I'll preface my virtual tour by saying it's been a frustrating 2 days. We are literally waiting for one vendor to finish their work at the Lakeview shelter, and they're the overhead garage doors. They were supposed to have been installed Friday. They were also then supposed to have been installed today. Neither were accomplished. So I'm getting anxious. We're going to have a little meeting tomorrow morning if there isn't a truck at Lakeview to discuss when and how that's getting taken care of, because the final piece of the puzzle is Thursday when the door control software company comes in and wires everything and fires up the system. And that my hope was that Friday we would have bathrooms open to the public. So I'm still hopeful that occurs, but it's going to take a little prodding apparently. So I'll try and just be quiet and let you watch. The video is silent. I'm not a videographer, but this will kind of give you, if you haven't been on site, a little view of how the shelter looks. That door to the left will be replaced. That's temporary. There are 3 garage doors installed for temporary to achieve occupancy, and that's what we're waiting to be replaced. When you see the inside doors, they're to be glass doors that give you great view outside. So this is entering the building. The kitchen is to the right here. I don't go in there because the youth center is using this space right now for their homework assistance, and they're using the kitchen as storage for their materials that they use.
You studied from Hitchcock, I can tell.
Ha.
It looks great.
The views to the pond are awesome.
Yeah.
And they'll be even better when the right garage doors are in. This is that patio look area where we'll have the Adirondack chairs installed. Be a really informal gathering area. Sorry for the quick movements there. This is my favorite. The fireplace has really cleaned up extremely well. I really like the tile behind the fireplace. And this is just a view into one of the bathrooms.
I like the tile. It very much matches the nature of the structure.
Those architects, they're tricky when they put triangle tiles and match the triangle roof of the building.
Yeah.
So that's my quick glimpse into the Lakeview Park shelter. And someday it's my hope that everyone will get to see it in person.
Well, Matt, I personally would say kudos. I think it was a great plan, a great thing, and you've worked with these guys and executed, and I think you should be very proud of having pulled this all off. I think it looks great.
I'd say this even if he wasn't still on the call, but Mike Everly and really Doug Pale did awesome work on this. Very happy with their work, and Harmony has been a great partner. I think they've saved the city a lot of money in the process. They've really made some good on-site decisions that have really benefited the project. And I think the team of Doug and from an architect and project manager and the city, that team really worked well. We ran into some issues, as you're well aware, with the tile arriving a little later than we expected, and some challenges with our own city inspection team. But I think we worked through it and ended up with a great product.
Well, I guess on behalf of the committee to all involved, convey it, because I think this was a major project. We spent time on this thing, and I think the end result looks great. I'm personally very pleased with it. So thank you all who were involved in this. All right, any other comments, questions? All right, that was the end of the agenda. So if there's no further business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, by consensus, we'll all go. So thank you all very much, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Have a good time. Enjoy the snow.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.